fcForms is an external application developed to allow FirstClass administrators to easily create and display forms for submission to FirstClass conferences or communities using FirstClass Web Services. The FirstClass administrator can offer different forms to different groups of users. This user has 3 different forms available to him: a work order form, a transportation request form, and one that displays a sample of all of the different types of fields available. More on this later. Let's go back to the work order form. You can see that some fields are red, and this indicates that some of the fields are required and must be completed before submission. If I try to submit this form now, I'm not allowed, and all required fields must be completed. fcForms uses the new capabilities of HTML5, so your browser compliance may vary somewhat. Chrome, as I'm using here, is fully compliant. With HTML5 forms, you can specify placeholder text to guide your users, and this is an optional value in the form field setup. You can also specify a pattern for which you want your field to adhere to. In this case, for the phone number, if I fail to put in the brackets around the area code, you'll be notified when you try to submit. A wide variety of field types are available, and this form only demonstrates some of them. The administrator can specify pre- and post text as well for each form, and you can determine which of these pieces of text are also included with the form submission. Let's submit this form now. I'm notified of a successful submission. I can visit the target container, and when I open the form, I see that it has maintained the relevant styling. For backwards compatibility, if I open the form using the desktop client, we see that it looks the same here as well. Returning to the Forms application and choosing the Field Samples form, we see that our field types include text, numeric fields, fields that must contain a valid email address or URL, text area fields, checkboxes, selection lists, radio buttons, date fields, and custom fields with custom data entry requirements. These fields are all part of the HTML5 form specifications and are not available yet in all browsers as of the date of this recording. The fcForms documentation will provide more detail. For a quick look at how this was set up, let's look at the configuration files that the administrator has set up for this system. A file named forms.json is where the administrator defines what forms he wants to present to his users. This is a structured JSON file, and it contains an array of entries. Each entry contains the form name, the path to where the form structure resides, we'll look at this next, the list of exposed groups to which he wishes to offer this form. Here we see that the transportation request and field samples forms are available to all users, but the work order form is only available to users who belong to the staff and employees groups. Each form has its own container to which it must be submitted and a subject for the submission. The form content is another structured JSON file containing the following: the name that will appear as the form legend, optional pre- and post text which will appear before or after the form when presented to the user, along with a designation of whether or not you wish to have the pre- or post text included on the sent form itself. This is then followed by an array of objects where each of them defines the form field. Each field type contains different values, and these are described more in the documentation. For example, select fields require option values, text fields require a width and optionally a pattern or placeholder text. All fields can be required or not. The Field Samples form contains examples of all the different field types, so adding a field to your own form is as easy as copying from the sample text, pasting into your own configuration file, and modifying the values. Hopefully, fcForms will provide administrators with new ways to harness the power of FirstClass.